Earlier, we talked about the importance of accurate temperature measuring stations. Last month, the NCDC and the NASA Goddard Center proclaimed the first decade of the 21st century the warmest in history. They're talking about the years 2000 through 2009. Now, when you look at their charts, one thing that really jumps out at you is how slight the differences in average temperatures are. From the warmest year to the coolest, the range is less than 1/2 of 1 degree. So accuracy is absolutely critical. For more than a decade, meteorologist Anthony Watts of Chico, California, has been concerned about the quality of those temperature observations in the U.S. and around the rest of the world. And he's put together a survey of U.S. weather observation stations. And he joins us now. Anthony Watts, what caused you to question the temperature measurements?
Well, John, it really started out looking at something entirely different. We were looking at what happened when you changed the paint on some of the old-style weather stations. They used to be done with whitewash, and they got changed to latex in 1979. I always wondered what kind of a difference that made. And we started out initially looking at that, and that only. But then we discovered new problems, and those problems had to do with the way the stations were sited. And that problem was much larger than the one we had originally started to look at associated with paint.
Well, tell us about your survey of the weather stations and what you found out.
Well, as I said, it started off totally in a different angle. We started looking around, and boy, we found lots of things. For example, a weather station over volcanic cinder rock in Waterville, Washington. In Dayton, Washington, same kind of setup. We found it again in Yreka, California. Same kind of thing, over hot cinder rock. In the summertime, you can imagine how warm that rock gets. We also found them in curious places. In the 30 years I've been involved in meteorology, I never knew that they measured climate at sewage treatment plants. Well, this is a sewage treatment plant that has an underground tank, and that vent that you see to the right of the weather station blows out warm air from the sewage treatment tank. The curator said the snow never sticks to the ground around that station. Here's the picture I took in Ontario, Oregon. The temperature outside was at freezing, 32 degrees. 0 degrees centigrade, but you can see from the infrared camera that that wastewater plant had a lot of heat in it. We kept looking and looking and looking, and we did find some good stations, but we found a lot of bad ones, like this one on a rooftop in Roseburg, Oregon, and this one here on a rooftop in Santa Rosa, California, at the Press Democrat newspaper there. Right in the middle of the building, a giant heat island of air conditioners and roofing. And here in San Diego, across the bay in Coronado, there's one on the rooftop of the fire station there, a mere 2 feet above the surface. We found this problem all over the place. No matter where we looked, we continued to find temperature sensors next to buildings, next to air conditioners. And we realized that the problem had to do with the new modernization program. That unit that's on the post there is the new electronic sensor. And notice where it's placed near the air conditioners. But the old weather station out in the middle of the field, way in the background there, that one is on the grassy area. The problem was that the Weather Service couldn't get around things like asphalt and concrete. They couldn't trench under it, and so they put them closer to the buildings. Our survey has now completed 87% of all of the climate weather stations in the United States. And we found that basically 90% of them don't conform to NOAA's own published standards. They have a simple standard, an old one, called the 100-foot rule. Keep these stations away from biasing influences by 100 feet. 90% of them did not meet that.
Well, in their response to our first program, NCDC explained that they established a premium weather station network to compare with these national measurements that you have been explaining. And the premium group of stations, according to them, came up with the same temperature averages as they'd been getting, proving actually, Anthony, there's nothing wrong with their data. How do you respond?
Well, I would point out that that new network, which I endorse and I think is an excellent idea, and I've looked at these stations, they're well done, has only been running for about 1.5 years. So they don't have a data set that goes back 100 years. They don't have a data set that really we can say anything statistically significant about.
Well, thanks very much for being with us, Anthony Watts.